Almost. Okay, let me know when so that I can do your
Setting up.
introduction.
Sure. So we're just setting it up. Hi. All right, we're
Okay,
live.
perfect.
Yes.
All right, welcome everyone from Angelic Treasures to another episode of our programming for the 8 weeks. Today is March 31st. This is our second last training that will be uh, with Miss Sylvia. Miss Sylvia is the COO of Angelic Treasures Christian Daycare. She is going to be sharing her screen with everyone, so you're welcome to join on Zoom or you can watch here, and it should be shared everywhere, which is fantastic. If you have any questions, you're welcome to comment below or in our chat, and Sylvia or myself will be able to check them and get back to you. So welcome, Sylvia. Thank you so much for coming on. The topic for today is literacy in everyday life. So Sylvia's going to go over things that you guys can do to promote literacy with your children in everything that you do, as opposed to it being sitting down and doing a workbook and things like that. There's ways to make it fun and engaging and help them learn. So I'm going to shut my video off now so that I can give it to Sylvia. Um, there we go. And now it's all Sylvia. So Sylvia, you are welcome to take it away.
Thank you, Katrin. Hi, everyone. I'm so glad you can join us tonight and or later after you watch this on video. I just wanted to let you know that we're going to focus on academic activities for children, infants, toddlers, preschoolers. And so I'm going to share my screen with you because I've worked really, really hard on a wonderful presentation. I think it's wonderful anyways, and that's all that matters. Um, okay, so here we go. I'm just going to start the presentation. All right. So, academic activities. We're talking anything that has to do with literacy, like Katrin said, or math or science. So, academic activities are things, skills that they put in their toolbox so that when they start school, they can transfer them. Infants is our first age group. So infants are considered between 6 weeks to 18 months. Before that, they're newborn, and newborns really are just still learning how to eat, how to drink, how to sleep properly. So it's definitely a stage of transition. So when we talk about infants, we're talking about sort of mid infants. So when you start, when they're alert more often, they're not sleeping all day and all night because newborns are like that. We all know that. And usually awake all night. Um, so infants, there are many things you can do with infants, and we all know this. And you'll find that most of the activities I have are going to be natural activities. So they are activities that don't require you to purchase anything. They are activities that you can do at any time. Okay. So copycat. Faces and sounds, give them time to mirror. So when you're doing tummy time with your baby, or even when you're sitting and they're sitting in the crook of your arm, like facing you, make sure that you're making faces, and when you make a face, hold it for a few seconds or even a minute. Let them try and take in what you're doing and mirror it. Babies are really good at that. It's called the copycat sort of thing. And really giving them time to mirror is very important because it's allowing them time to synthesize what you just did and to, mirror what you're saying. So make sure that your tummy time is worth it, you're playing with them, and all that. Up, down, and peekaboo. So when you're doing tubby time again with them, make sure that you raise your head and then you drop your head down and then you raise your head again. That sort of fun interaction with your baby, you'd be surprised. It helps them to work on the muscles of their neck, but it also helps them to understand eye contact. And when there's no eye contact, you're gone, and then they find you again. It's exhilarating for them. So these are all pre-literacy details. So we find that with reading, especially pre-reading or pre-literacy, that children have a hard time going through the actual letters, or keeping what we call tracking, right? Tracking words, tracking sentences. In that case, it is very important to ensure that you have the ability to help them with tracking. And the way you do that is through these games. You think they're fun games that you're playing with them, but you're really teaching them how to keep focused on an object and how to raise their head, how to track with their eyes for later on when they're reading, they're able to track a sentence and they're able to track chapter books and so on. Okay. Blanket peekaboo. Okay, so object permanence is the big thing that we talk about with infancy. Sorry, Katrin, can you shut off the video on Zoom? Perfect. On Zoom. Yeah. Okay. So blanket peekaboo.
Sorry.
No worries.
How do I do that? You want me to stop the video on Zoom?
No, oh, you're not on video on Instagram. Is that what you're saying?
We we're we're recording on Instagram. Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Okay,
We're
okay,
live
okay.
on Instagram. Is that okay?
No, that's fine, but it's recording you as well. So I still see you.
Oh, you can see me?
I do.
Oh, I only see you.
That's
Oh, well,
okay.
I'm just doing notes over here on my
No
floor.
worries. No worries.
Can I stop my video? Is that a thing?
Yeah,
Did that work?
yeah, you could still see my screen. Now it just says
Okay.
Katrin. Good.
Oh,
Um,
perfect. Thank you.
so
I only
no
see
worries.
you.
No worries. So blanket peekaboo is very important. Object permanence is the skill of children understanding that when something is not in their sight, that it still exists. So with babies, they feel like basically if you cover your head, you disappear to them. You're basically non-existent anymore. So they don't understand, which is why they cry when you leave their sight lines. They cry because they can't see you, which means you're gone. You're gone forever. So object permanence is a very important skill to learn and to teach your baby. And the way you need to do that is having a blanket sitting right across of them while they're doing tummy time, and you go down under the blanket, you give them a few seconds, you uncover your face, and it's peekaboo time. Now they see you coming back over and over again. They understand it's a game. As you play this game more and more with them, believe it or not, the object permanence skill becomes more apparent. And that helps with their anxiety when you're not around. That helps them stay calm even when they wake up in the middle of the night in their crib and you're not there. At least in the back of their mind, they remember that game and they may, at some point develop this earlier on. Boxes are magical. Okay, so honestly, we all do it. We all go on an Amazon, we all shop, and I know for a fact that I have like 15 boxes lying around the house. So boxes are magical. They love crawling into them. You can build forts out of them. They can have, a go at those very thick sort of crayons that they have for infants, and they can just hold it and they can just kind of color the boxes. It's magical because it allows them to go in, it allows them to push it, pull it. So it's mobile. You can even attach like anything to it. You can attach a string, a rope, a yarn, whatever it is, and you can get them to make it into a pull toy. They just absolutely love it. I think that out of all the most beautiful things that we bought for our kids when they were young, whatever boxes came in them, that was more important for them. So it was quite funny because we would spend hundreds of dollars on these brand new toys for our baby, and all the baby wanted was the box that it came in. So keep it simple. Honestly, playing with boxes will enable them with fine motor control, with gross motor control, which is the bigger body parts. Fine is the smaller body parts. Working out their muscles, pushing, pulling, gives them control. They're light enough that they can go inside them and they can hide and do that whole blanket peekaboo thing, but backwards, right? So they can hide themselves and then come out and pop out, and you're like, oh, there you are. And it's almost like object permanence is still being relayed through that game. All right, next. One second. I don't know why. Okay, here. Textures. So when you carry your baby, no matter what age they are, take them over and teach them about textures. Okay. They are very sensory at that age. They put everything in their mouth, which we find adorable and a curse at the same time because come on, like stop putting stuff in your mouth. But it's absolutely adorable. So get them to feel textures. They're very sensory. So that sense of touch and wonder is amazing. It's very simple. Walk over to a rug with them and sit with a rug and say, soft. Isn't this soft? This is so soft. Or if it's furry, it's furry. Okay. I don't know what kind of carpet you have. We had like the foam sort of puzzle sort of thing. And I'd be like, oh, foam, foam. That's all I kept saying. And my baby was like, okay, sounds good. Walls, again, you're going on a walk and there's a brick wall, or there's a cork wall, or there is some stucco wall. Walk over there and let them just reach out and touch it, just gently, and just say, look, it's rough. Isn't that rough? Yeah, isn't that interesting? Bricks, wood, granite, marble, plastic. It goes on and on. Label everything as they touch it. So just say, this is granite, granite, granite. Okay. And just say soft, smooth, all the attributes that come with the whole texture. Pointing it out. So when you go on walks, make sure with your infants, make sure that you're pointing at common things if they're awake in the stroller. So if they're awake, capitalize on that and talk to them. Okay. I see a lot of moms and dads walking infants in the strollers, and the infant is looking at the mom or dad, and they're either on their phone or they're listening to music or they're doing something other than interacting with the baby. And that's fine. Obviously, I mean, leave it to me. I know exactly. I've had 3 babies. So I know exactly that sometimes walk time is like my getaway and it's my quiet time and it's lovely because the baby is kind of looking around. But if you want, you can use that as an opportunity to point at different things and say their names. Repetition helps. A lot of people think, what's the point of me talking to the baby? The baby's not talking back. And that's true. The baby won't talk back. But your baby has a very high receptive language. Receptive language is the ability to hear and understand, but not respond. So it's almost me and Spanish. Okay. So I can understand Spanish when people talk Spanish at me. I can understand Spanish and I know what they're saying, but I'm like, hola. Like I really don't know what to say in return because that's not my forte, right? So, really pointing things out as you go on walks and pointing at common things and saying their names. Repetition for receptive language is huge. Hi, Angie. Angie's on. She's the CEO of Angelic Treasures and my partner.
Hi
Um,
there.
hi. So, if you speak another language at home, this is a good time to use it. A lot of people say, "Oh, but I don't want to confuse my child," and but your baby is enormously born with the ability of something we call linguistic duality, which means that if you speak to them in your language, in your native language, they will eventually learn English and they will eventually know who to talk to in what language, especially children born to biracial parents or biracial families and multiracial families. So let me tell you a story. My parents speak Arabic fluently, and the grandparents, my husband's parents, are Italian, Italian, basically English, right? Speaking. And then we have a friend who spoke Portuguese, and they had a babysitter that spoke a little bit of like German or something. I can't remember what the exact language. It was a European language. When Julia was born, she's my eldest, and she was being babysat, and she was at this lady's home for daycare because there was no Angelic Treasures nearby at that time. And she would go to my parents' house. When she started speaking, she would speak in Arabic to my parents. She would start speaking in Italian to the grandfather that's Italian. She would start speaking Portuguese to the babysitter. She knew exactly who to talk to in which language. And no one had to teach her that. She just knew that whoever spoke to me in that, I can speak to them back. So if you're wondering, should I be speaking to my child in Mandarin? Should I be speaking to my child in Hindi? Or could I be speaking to my child in Arabic or Italian or Portuguese? Whatever language you speak at home, this is the time to do it. Okay. It's harder as they get older. And I'll tell you why, because they start developing what we call like phenoms in their head. So a certain language is associated with a certain dialect. It's a certain system and infrastructure inside the brain. So once those neural pathways create themselves in the language, it's very hard to reiterate. It's very hard to regress. Okay. So now is the time when they're a baby and they're listening to you. If you speak in Italian and you want to speak to them in English, feel free to do so. I was doing that with Arabic and English, and say to them, wait, aspetta, istenni. Those are 3 languages right there: Italian, Arabic, and English. If you want to speak to them in French, that's fine too. It's whatever you feel comfortable speaking to them, and they will understand it. So as you go for walks, make sure you repeat everything. Their receptive language is very, very high. Just because they can't speak back to you doesn't mean they don't understand you. Okay. And again, and I'm just sending this out there. Um, I had a really good friend of mine whose husband whose husband tended to say, "Oh, it's just a baby." So, you know, cursing was okay and like certain saying certain things was okay, but you'd be surprised how much these children pick up. Even though they're infants, their receptive language is very high. So, fair warning. All right. Next, play catch. So babies can't play catch with a ball, so please don't throw a ball at them. I am not going to be the one responsible for them getting bonked in the head by a ball. So instead, play catch with soft objects. Now we're talking about textures, we're talking about tracking. Okay, when you're throwing something towards them, we want them to be able to track it because that's pre-literacy. So throw things that float, maybe a scarf. When you're outside, throw a scarf at them and just see if they can kind of grasp at it, and when it floats down to them they can kind of like either release it or you take it from them and you throw it again at them, or a feather or a cotton, something very very lightweight that's even hard to catch, but it's about tracking. You're not trying to get them to catch the skill, you're not making them into a future baseball player. What you're doing is you're allowing them the opportunity to throw something their way that's very soft, so it doesn't matter where it lands, for them to actually look up at it and track it as it falls down. Again, that is a skill that they're going to require when they're reading. Okay. So, soft objects like scarves, feathers, cotton, or anything that is harder to catch. We're working on eye hand coordination, not actual catching skills. Okay. Touch your face and facial features. This is so key. I mean, a lot of parents go out of their way, and it's so cute because when I first had my baby, I went and bought all these toys. They don't want any toys. They just need the interaction with you. You are their favorite toy. Okay, so think about it that way. You're their parent, you're their favorite toy. They love looking at you. Okay, so basically, when you're playing with them, make sure you're touching your face or their face and you're going boop, touch your nose, boop, touch your nose, and just wait for them to either touch your nose or touch their own. And as you do it, just say nose, nose, right? So you're teaching them the word nose, you're teaching them where it is on their face. And now you can say to them, here you go, wipe your nose. Here you go, wipe your nose. So you can add to that skill by just showing them where their features are. Looking in a mirror helps, but even looking at your face because you can mirror each other and wait for them to mirror. Mirroring is basically mimicking, okay? At a younger age, we call it mirroring because they're trying to copy what you're doing. So sometimes when you say right eye, they point at their left eye because they're mirroring you. Okay. There's a difference between that and mimicking. Okay. So touch your nose, wait for mirroring, touch your ear, and then just say ear, ear, eyes, cheeks, cheeks, and label everything as you touch it. Okay. And then you can even do it reward them. So if they touch their nose or they touch your nose when you say nose, just give them a little snuggle or you know, sniff their neck or tickle them or something just to show them that you got it right. You did that. You got it right. Okay. Reading. I can't stress enough, and I think Angie and I agree on this. Reading all the time. From newborn until now, I still read to my children. Okay. And one of them is 9, but we still read together because reading is critical. It develops like I said, the neural pathways to the brain. It associates language with text. It enables children to track. It enables children to look at pictures. Reading for infants is very, very important. Whether you're reading a newspaper, whether you're reading a magazine, whether you're reading a sensory book for infants where they can touch and feel, it doesn't matter what you're reading. The fact is that you're sitting with them and you're reading, and you should be demonstrating that behavior to them. They should see you reading in order to ensure that you're modeling for them. Okay. Next. So we've got a few more here. So verbalization is key. This is very, very important. So I'm doing some milestones with you for infants because I just covered a bunch of activities you do with them. So verbalization is key at this stage, and remember to keep it simple. So here are the milestones you're hoping to achieve with babies, okay? And like I said, some of your babies, and like I meet so many babies that are geniuses. They're like way ahead of their time. So by the time they're 18 months, they're already talking and walking and reading. Some of them are counting to 100. So it, that shows an investment of time and energy from the parents, okay? So really it's 6 weeks to 18 months, but you can say 6 weeks to maybe 12 months or 13 months. This is a very rough timeline, but it doesn't necessarily mean that all children are going to fall in there. Some are going to be ahead, some may fall behind a little bit, and that's okay. They're children. They only existed for 18 months. That's nothing, okay? So remember, eye-hand coordination. I can't say it enough. It's very, very important because it will play a key role in their ability to dress themselves and their ability to brush their teeth and their ability to read and write and their ability to be able to do fine motor skills, painting, playing piano. All of these things are going to require eye hand coordination. Typing on a computer. How much do we type on a computer? All of us. A lot. So they're going to need that for the future. So eye hand coordination is key. Emotional expression. Remember when I said play the copycat game, mirror expressions? There's nothing wrong with going sad, sad, and wait for them to show you sad, and then happy, happy. So all of these are emotional intelligence, and it enables them to model emotional expression. Object permanence. So I've already covered it. Object permanence is the belief that when you're gone forever, which is so cute. And when it's really sad when they start losing this because it really shows that they're moving on to the next stage of their childhood. But object permanence is also a very anxiety driven sort of emotion. So you do want to develop the idea that just because I'm gone doesn't mean I'm gone forever as soon as possible so that you can keep their anxiety down. So when you're gone out of the room, they're still very happy, self sufficient, knowing you're going to come back. And this is part of attachment theory, which is an entirely new webinar. Okay. Receptive language. So we talked about that. You want to develop their receptive language by speaking to them, by singing to them, by making eye contact with them, and by interacting with them at all times. As much as possible, not at all times, but as much as possible. I get it, mama. The moms of babies, they're just like heroes. They expend all of their energy, and the babies are crying at night. And we were blessed definitely with this baby, but we are also really tired and exhausted. So give yourself some grace, and when you can, just try and achieve these milestones with your baby. And physical responses. So always look for their physical responses and always respond to them physically. So when I said reward them by like kissing them or by snuggling them when they do things or when they touch their nose properly, then that's just a physical response. And babies are very physical at that age. Okay. Okay. Older infants and toddlers. All right. They're great. They're very busy. So, with older toddlers, what you want to do is pretty much try and label the entire environment with letters that and objects that start with different letters. So, for example, F, you put it on the fridge. The O, you put it on the oven. And sticky notes work just fine because they're going to pick up that sticky note. Sorry, they're going to pick up that sticky note and they're going to walk around with it. And they may or oh as they're walking around. And that's fine. So what you can do is say the O is on oven. Now let's look around. Oh, can you put the sticky note on the orange? Oh, orange. All you're doing is you're associating a letter with a sound. Okay, so it's very, very, very simple. It's a very simple exercise, but you're immersing their environment, which is practical and pragmatic. It's all around the house. Sticky notes comes in little pads, and they come for like I don't know. There's like 1,000 of them or something like that in a pad. They're like $1.50 from the dollar store. It's very very cheap to buy, and basically you're labeling things, and then you're getting them to throw it in the garbage afterwards. Oh my gosh, toddlers love throwing stuff in the garbage. I can't tell you how many times I found my makeup in the garbage and other stuff, which is not supposed to be in the garbage, but that's okay. We love them anyways. So make sure you label the environment that start with the different objects. Sticky notes work. Get them to take the sticky note off the fridge and say, find something else with f. Let's walk around. And just keep looking around until you find something with F, get them to put it on and celebrate because they have understood the connection between the letter, the sign, and the signifier, the letter and its connection to the word. All right, next, immerse your child in language. This is even from babyhood. A lot of parents love to put these beautiful sayings on the wall in cursive, and it says, for this child, I have prayed, and beautiful Bible verses. Don't get me wrong. And some people, have the Dr. Seuss up there, and it's gorgeous. Don't get me wrong, but I would invest, or I would go out and get a couple of posters with the alphabet and the numbers on it, because honestly, immersing them in their bedroom and before they go to sleep to be able to look at that every day, it becomes familiar to them. It becomes part of the precognition. So cognition is the ability to develop intellect. Okay, their precognition is aligned with the receptive language. So make sure that if you immerse your room in and you don't have to put like 50,000 posters, please don't do that and say Sylvia told me to. Just put a couple of posters, one for ABC and one for 1, 2, 3, and have them at night before they go to sleep. Just review it with them or say A for Alex, that's your name. So that they can understand that their name starts with an A, and basically everything that starts with an A is now going to be Alex, and that's fine for a while. So immerse the child in language everywhere they go. Look at the different letters. Use their bodies to create letters. So that's an active activity. And toddlers are so busy. They love walking around. They love running around and touching the wall and doing all of that stuff. So use their bodies. Ask them to create a C with their body. So lay down and curve your body, or ask them to create a K, lie down and go like this with your arms. I don't know. Or you create stuff with your body and you get them to guess the letter. It's a lot of fun to try and do that. It's fun to do it because you're moving, and it's fun to do it because your child is looking down at you like, Mom, Dad, what are you guys doing? But it's a really creative way to use our body for letters. Also, fingers work too. Okay, so we can do a capital D, we can do a small. uh, For me, it looks like a B, but maybe for you, it might be a D. I don't know. But you can do K, you can do R like this. Sometimes shadows, so using a lamp and doing the letter using your fingers on the wall, kind of cool. But again, it's so many different ways that you can talk about letters and talk about numbers and shapes and all that using just your bodies and your fingers, which is what hopefully we all have that, and hopefully we can be able to do that. So it's nothing you need to buy or outsource. Draw letters and numbers on their backs. So in the evening, I used to play with my children all the time. I would draw something on their back, like just gently. I would draw it like this. I would keep going in circles until my toddler would say circle, and I'm like, yes, I'm doing a circle. Okay, tell me what this one is. And I go like that, and they're like line, and I'm like, no. Two line, no. T, yes, you got it. It's a T. So drawing on their back does two things. It gives you an emotional connection because you are touching them and they're physically being sensory and physically being motivated or incentivized. But it also allows them to try and close their eyes and imagine what you're drawing. Well, what is that doing? That's developing their receptive literacy. So, we talked about receptive language before, which is the verbal language. Receptive literacy is the ability to connect letters to language, to understanding how that connects. So, when they think in their head, oh, how does an O look? How does an O look when they're learning to spell? They could just go like this. They remember, oh, this is when mommy drew the O on my back. So, it's a very important exercise, and if you haven't started doing it, you can even do it with older kids. They love it. Instead of writing one letter, you can actually write an entire word. Just saying. My 9-year-old still loves it. She's like, Mommy, can you rub my back? Actually, can we play the back game? And I'm like, sure, we'll do that. Number literacy, active education. Okay. I can't stress it enough. You don't need counters. You don't need dice. You don't need marbles. You don't need teddy bears. You don't need anything in order to teach number literacy. Okay. Number literacy, numeration is what we call it. And understanding that numbers stand for a quantity can be done through education, through active education. Sorry. So get them to do two jumping jacks and do it with them. They're very active, right? At that age, they have so much energy. You could do it with them, or you can ask them to do it. And you say, do two jumping jacks. So they do one, two. You're like, do one sit up. And so you could do a sit up with them. And then you're like, okay, how many were that in total? And he's like, and they'll look at you and be like, what? And you'll be like, okay, now let's count, but don't stop. So one, two, get down on the floor, three. So what's two plus one? Three. You're teaching them addition. You can teach them subtraction. You can teach them anything you want, but make sure that it's through active. Pick up the ball and put it back down. Pick it up 5 times. Let's do that 5 times. My kids were doing burpees. They were doing, and it was active, but they were learning how to count. And I tell my son when he was 2.5, I'd say go up 5 stairs, only 5 stairs, and wait for mommy. So he would go one, two, three, four, five. And then he'd look at me and be like, I'm waiting. So it was like perfect because I'd be like, okay, now come back down. How many is it? And he goes, one, two, three, four, five. I'm like, perfect. Now I want you to do that again, but do five plus five. So I would verbalize to him all the time, right? So I would help him count. So he'd go one, two, three, four, five. And of course, he'd turn around and say one, two, three, four, five. So I'd say, no, it's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So what's 5 plus 5? 10. But he's just gone up the stairs, up and down the stairs 4 times. And my kid slept really well. That's the key. Okay. Shape scavenger hunt. You would point out a shape. So you would say, look, this is a rectangle, rectangle, four lines, two long ones, two short ones, rectangle, rectangle. Hey, can you help me find a rectangle like this around the room? What's a rectangle? Show me what a rectangle looks like. Or you're going on a walk. We're going to look for everything that's a rectangle. The window. Yes. So they're developing their verbal language, you're labeling what they're looking at, and you are talking about 2D shapes, which is a very important tool in order to understand math, but also understand the shape of things helps us understand like basically our engineering architects all of it. So it's the basic to our world and introduction into math and science. But make sure that you're playing all the time because and I can't stress this enough. A lot of parents feel stressed out and they want to formalize the learning process for their toddlers. So they come into a daycare and they say, hi, do you do any academics with my child? And we do. We do so many academics, but it's play based because it doesn't need to be formalized. Children learn through play. Play is their full time job. So basically, make sure that there is a way for you to understand that because i- we keep expecting them to learn through, sitting down at a table and reading and writing. That's not how they learn right now. They learn through experiential learning. Um, Next is painting with berries. Ooh, so much fun. Okay, painting with berries is the best thing ever. I discovered it when I had my children as toddlers because I didn't like paint, okay? And even the DIY paint on Pinterest didn't work out for me. So what I did was I made sure, sorry, there's some feedback. Oh, okay. So what I did was I found something that was uh, gave me that sort of paint ability, staining, I guess you want to call it. And it was berries. So I tried blackberries, I tried raspberry, I tried blueberries, and they worked the best. There's other kind of berries and other kind of fruit that actually leave sort of like a stain or it looks like a varnish almost. So you can smush them and put them on toast, or you can smush them on paper, whatever you want to do, but it becomes art. And I used to smush them on the toast because after that we would eat them. And it was so much fun. The kids like they just loved it, and it was a natural paint color. It provided them with a sensory experience, and they were able to eat it afterwards. So it was a lot of fun for them. Yes, and Katrin did mention bubbles, which are a huge, very easy to do activity with the children, and also promotes the eye-hand coordination and tracking. Thank you, Katrin. Little helpers. So make sure you promote independence through asking them to clean up with you. They love doing this stuff, and I know my kids did. Get them a small broom if you want, like one from the dollar store, just like the small dustpan brooms. It's not even a broom; it's a dust pan duster. I don't know. It's a dustpan broom. I don't know what it's called. I think it's called that. So it's a small one, and they can get down on their knees and they can help you, and it might be help you because, there's not a lot. You're going to let them kind of, you're not going to collect dust and stuff, but you're going to get them to help you just to go through the motions. Maybe vacuuming. So you might want to get them to help you by holding a piece of the vacuum or standing in front of you as you vacuum back and forth and you go back and forth, back and forth. They love that. Dust with their own little tools. If they have a little duster, they can go around and help you dust. Whatever you do, they love to do as well. And you can promote self independence and promote that feeling of gratification when you do something for yourself through getting them to be a little helper. Sing songs on repeat. Uh, I have to tell you, I don't have the greatest voice. I don't. But your child, your voice is magical because anytime you sing, they just they remember mommy and daddy singing. This is the memory that stays with them. And it doesn't matter. They don't remember how awful the singing was in my case, how off pitch it was. They can't remember that I can't sing. They just remember that this was so much fun that my mom sang these songs to me. So in saying that, I wanted to tell you that there is the whole there's so many songs that have numbers. There's so many songs for letters as well, but really songs. So there's Sally the camel has 10 humps, and I misspelled has. Sorry about that. Sally the camel has 10 humps, and then ride, Sally, ride, and then you go down and you put one finger down. Now she has 9 humps. Now she has 8 humps. You can count with them how many fingers are left. You're teaching them about subtraction. You can even say Sally the camel had 4 humps, which I always did because I didn't have the patience to sing all 10 humps. Then you can do instead of five little ducks went out one day over the hill. I told you I can't sing, okay? So just bear with me. So 5 little ducks went out one day over the hills and far away. Mama duck said quack, 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 and only 4 little ducks came back. So again, we're minusing. We're taking away numbers. We're getting them to add. You can even start with 7 little ducks instead of 5. And then there's 5 speckled frogs. I don't know why all the songs either are 5 or 10. I don't understand, but you can make it 8. So it's 5 little speckled frogs sat on a speckled dog log eating a most delicious bug. Anyways, YouTube it. You'll find that song. Instead of 5 little monkeys jumping on the bed, you can do 3 little monkeys, depending on how little monkeys you have. I have 3 little monkeys. So I always do 3 little monkeys, and I always subtract them by getting them to technically fall off the bed. Again, please don't make your children drop out of the bed and blame me for it. I used to do it on the floor and then get them to just fall nicely. And then there were 10 in the bed, and Old MacDonald had a farm. There is a host of songs. Sing, sing, sing with them all the time. Get them to choose a favorite song. My son, I can't tell you how many times I sang Old MacDonald Had a Farm. I think between my husband and I, we sang it a couple of thousand times between the ages of 18 months and 2.5. That's all he wanted to listen to in the car. He wanted to listen to us sing it at night, and he would tell us the animals, and we would have to say the sounds. So make sure that you're singing with them at all times, okay? Pinch your grasp. So I just want to tell you that the pinch your grasp is and I'm sure most of you know this, but I'm just going to explain it. Pinch your grasp is the ability to hold or pinch a writing tool between your thumb and your forefinger. So, and being able to rest it properly. A lot of children don't work on pincher grasp. By the time they're in grade 1, they're not able to do this. They do this, they do this. Do you see my hand? They do this. Some of them just, flat out, I don't know how they do it, but they do this like, and they're writing with like both hands. I can't tell you how many grade 1s didn't know how to hold a pencil. And it's not because the parents didn't give them a pencil to hold. They tried. They worked with them on the pincher grasp, but they didn't do the other activities that promotes the ability to have a good pincher grasp. Those activities range from beating, so when you're beading, from big beads through pipe cleaner to smaller beads, and you work your way down, that's a fine motor skill that you're beading with them. Katrin showed us an activity which was awesome. A coriander, and she put the pipe cleaner through it, and then she got Cheerios, or I can't remember what they were. I think they were Fruit Loops. And she matched the colors of the pipe cleaners with the Fruit Loop. That right there, do you see this motion of putting the Fruit Loop on the actual pipe cleaner? That is called pincher grasp. Fruit Loops. Thank you. Thank you. Um, so make sure that pincher grasp is being developed in other ways. Okay. This might sound a little gross, but sometimes, in order to help my middle child develop the pincher grasp, I used to ask her to try and pick up her noodles pre-sauce. Okay, there was no tomato sauce. So I would boil some noodles for her and put a little bit of butter and salt. And then I would ask her to pick up the noodles with her hand and eat them, because she's just working on, and I'm like one noodle at a time, just because she can do this, and then and she eats it, and she got a really good kick out of it. She enjoyed doing that. It was something fun for her because she was having a hard time with this, so she didn't want to bead. So I couldn't I couldn't tell her to start beading with me whether she likes it or not. But now she's amazing. She's amazing at holding the pen. All right. Alphabet song all the time, and then always sing A B C D E F G H I J la, 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 until Z, and then stop and say what begins with A, what begins with what begins with You're always going to stop, because you're not just going to teach them the numbers, the letters in rote. Okay. Learning A to Z is great. I love it when parents are like, look, my child can say his entire alphabet. And I'm like, okay, but do they understand what that letter means? Where it stands, what sounds it make, because that's what they need to start learning. So it's wonderful that they can learn ABC, but they learn all these other songs you sing to them anyways. Now it's important to really teach them what those sounds sound like in a word. So have them guess. Even if it's wrong, it's okay. Gently correct them and say yes if they say table. There is an A in table. It doesn't start with A, but there's an A. So you could say to them, you know what? A isn't table. It comes after T. Able. Good job. So as long as you're getting them to do the scavenger hunt or the I Spy with the letters, I think that's very important. Also, let them find the first letter of their name on road signs and store signs. So I didn't know this, but this was something I did with my children, and apparently Katrin does with her children. And it's a great game to play in the car. Okay, away from screen time, no tablets. They sit in the car and they have to look around, and they have to be like, my son is Timothy. So he'd be like, Timothy. And it could be like, Home Depot, and the T's at the end. But it doesn't matter. The fact is, he thought any T was his name. And that's a very good thing. It gets them engaged in the environment around them. It gets them looking at road signs. It gets them reading, reading, because they're searching for their letter. Okay. And then continue the reading activities. I can't stress it enough that you need to continue reading with your children. Conversation is key at this age. Everything is possible. No baby language, and use long words if possible. So if you can, use long words. So, oh, there it says on the next point, it says if you can. Speak in dual languages. So if you have different languages, make sure you continue speaking them in dual languages, and clarify as much as possible. When I say no baby language, it's cute sometimes, because they're still very much baby like when they're 19 months and 20 months. They still look like a baby, but it's not cute when they're going into grade 1 and they're still calling like a water bottle Bubba. Okay, you have to be careful. I spoke to my children at night before I put them to bed. I'm like, oh, I love you, baby, and I would, like, I don't know, whisper nonsense in their ear. But during the day, I would say, if my son dropped something on the floor, I'd say, that's a consequence of you pushing it off the table. Or I would say, you know what? Do not be unreasonable. I've already told you. This is my final decision. Or I'll say things like, you know, uh, this. I would say good morning. I would never say good morning. Like I would always speak to them in full language. And all our friends were baffled, like beside themselves at the language that my children developed. My children just spoke back to me. What I said to them, they said back to me. So obviously, if I'm going to speak to them in intelligent words and long words and not hold back because they're young, they're going to speak it back and they're going to sound like little geniuses when all they're doing is talking back exactly what I was talking to them. So just don't, the baby language is cute sometimes, but don't. And I know it's hard because my daughter used to always say, my huppy about her hip. She'd be like, "Mommy, my huppy hurts." And I'm like, "Oh my God, huppy is such a cute word for it. Hip. It's hip." But she's like, "This is my huppy." And my son, he's 5, he says accidentally. Oh my God, how adorable is that? Instead of accidentally, he says accidentally. So it's hard. It's hard to change that and correct it in them, but it's necessary. So when he says accidentally, I'm like, "I'm going to eat you. It's accidentally." And I correct it for him gently, obviously, right? You don't have to tell them you're going to eat them either. Okay, so toddler milestone. At this age, they're developing their verbal language. So receptive language versus verbal language. Then they're developing emotional intelligence. Toddlers, I know everyone calls them the terrible twos. They don't have to be terrible. Not if you teach them how to channel their energy and how to channel their anger and how to deal with their anger if they need to. Um, there are ways, many different ways that you can tell them, do you feel red right now? Because red stands for anger, or yellow means you're about to get angry, or green, which means you're happy. Have that, have 3 dots, like almost like a traffic light. That's called emotional regulation. It's very simple. They use it in school. And it basically tells them, it gives them emotional awareness. What zone are you in right now? And that helps them to mediate and sort of cope with the feelings they're feeling. And oh, that's another thing. Make sure you label their feelings. Okay. A lot of parents just say happy and sad. Okay. Your children are not, you know, just those 2 dimensions. They are complex creatures just like you are. So you make sure you say to them, "You're frustrated right now. I can see you're frustrated right now." Or you say, "I can see that you're unhappy with that. Why are you unhappy right now?" Or I can see you're nervous. Are you nervous? Why are you nervous? Or you'll say something like, "Are you afraid? I'm here for you. I love you. I will never leave you. Are you afraid?" So it's being able to connect their emotion with a label because their biggest frustration is that they feel something and they can't express it. So they start tantruming. They are unable to tell you how they feel. And I have to tell you, when I go into a foreign country and I don't speak the language and I'm trying to ask for directions or I'm trying to understand my surroundings or I'm going to try and orient myself, and I've only been there for a day or two, I need someone to help me understand, orient myself to help me understand and label that. So make sure that you always label their emotions. Perfect. Stranger anxiety. At this age, now they've understood object permanence. Yay! But unfortunately, the other side of object permanence is stranger anxiety. They are now attached to you. They know what you look like. They know what you sound like. They know what you smell like. They know you as their parent. And they understand that when someone else is in the room or someone else wants to take them or they go to daycare, that they are a stranger. So, stranger anxiety is a great thing. A lot of people think, oh, stranger anxiety is awful. I loved it when they could just go to anyone because I can just get a quick break. Stranger anxiety actually shows us that their self is emerging. So they have a self and you are a separate self. They love you, they're attached to you, but they are now their own self. So that is going to be the precursors into them developing their own, reasoning and their own opinions of things. And it's a wonderful, wonderful precursor to cognition or cognitive abilities. Linguistic and mathematical preconcepts, like I told you, everything we do, whether it's a pinch or grasp, whether it's labeling letters around the room, whether it's understanding where my name is, whether it's immersing them in language, is all linguistic and mathematical. Reasoning and mimicking. So remember when I said when they're babies, They are mirroring. Mirroring means they're just doing what you're doing. Mimicking is not just doing what you're doing, it's taking what you're doing and repeating it in their own voice. Okay, so there's a difference. Here, they know that they are a separate person and they are copying you. They are aware of that. But mirroring is not the case. Okay. In mirroring, they are just doing what you're doing because that's their reaction. It's instinctual. So that's a very, very big difference. And you have to understand mimicking is very important when it comes to language. They are going to be able to pick up the nuances of language and understand. That's why when I say to you, don't speak to them in baby language, they're going to be able to understand pronunciation and the actual enunciation of different sorry, pronunciation of different letters and words. That's what provides what we call the schemas or the ideas in their mind. Okay. And physical energy. Remember how I said it? The only way you're going to teach numbers or addition or subtraction, please don't do it on numbers like paper and pen. Do it through burpees. Do it through sit ups. Do it through running up and down the stairs. Do it through anything that's going to engage their actual physical health. Okay. Sorry, is there another comment? Hold on one second. All right, perfect. Katrin was just saying that Atticus, her son, says marote instead of remote. That's so cute. And always label the emotions because they become parrots. Yeah, exactly. So it's that piece about, you know, making sure that you are respectful of their emotions and labeling them. Good. Preschool, before I go into preschool, actually, the people that are on line and on Zoom, how are we feeling so far? Can somebody kind of contribute and tell me if my pace is okay? Everyone can hear me fine. It's interesting. Is there any questions before we continue? Jules, Aline, Rashaline, Tajpreet, anything? Am I good? Oh, I got a thumbs up. Super informative. Thank you, Angie. Thank you, Katrin. Thank you. Anybody else? I just don't want to rush through everything, but at the same time, I want to make sure I touch base with you guys. You're okay. All right. So we'll continue. All right. So preschool. This could be my favorite age. Preschool is about 2.8 years to about 4 years. We call it preschool because it is a few years before school, preschool. But sometimes preschoolers, hi guys, hi, they are so cute, aren't they? The cutest. Okay, so use soft noodles to create simple words. Boil some spaghetti noodles or boil some penne noodles, whatever noodles you want to boil, and get them to create different letters, and those letters make words. And using the noodles, make a pattern. So, for example, ought, O T. So, put OT in there, and then what you can do is make sure that they put a letter before OT, and they can put Z, Zot. Is that a word? That's not a word, silly. Eat that. Okay, how about a P? Pot. Is that a word? Yes, it is. Where's a pot? Can you help me find a pot in the kitchen? Yes. Hot. Can you show me what hot looks like? So it's not just understanding that the first letter makes up a word with the same pattern, but also understanding what that word means. Okay. So create simple words using noodles. Patterning and phonics are key. Okay. Understanding that when we play a game, I was playing since 2.5 years old. I was playing with my kids. I'm like, egg, 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 big, 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 big. And I wait for them and they're like, sig. And I'm like, dig, 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 dig. And I'm like, okay, your turn. Nick, lig, rig. And you could see them doing the same pattern but trying all these different letters. So it's very, very important. And sometimes we did silly patterns and silly words, and that was fine too, right? So the fact is that they're learning that there is a pattern, which means a consistent variable that stays within the word. That eases their ability to read later on. Okay, so I don't really believe in sight reading, which is recognizing words just by a few letters, because that doesn't help children establish the difference between or identify the difference excuse me, between pan and pain, because the vowel in the sound. So phonics are very important. Okay, and that's where this phonics comes in play. It is very important to teach them about short vowels and long vowels. And if you don't know this stuff, you can just Pinterest. I mean, Pinterest has so many little posters you can print out or whatever. But really understanding between the consonants and vowels and understanding their short vowels and long vowels and understanding that they need to sound it out. Okay, it is very, very important. In my 28-year career or 25-year career, I'm not dating myself. I started being a teacher when I was 2. Um, so in my my illustrious career as a teacher, I struggled with this because the schools decided to do whole language theory, which is basically the children guessing at the words. And as long as they have the spirit of the language, it's fine. I don't believe in that. So I used to walk in kindergarten classrooms when I was younger and I was a teacher. I'd walk into kindergarten classrooms where the word world, WORLD, which was, by the way, written on the board, and all they needed to do was just kind of, copy it, was like whirl and Lord, and it's backward D and stuff. And when I asked the teacher, how come reversals weren't corrected? How come this letter's upside down? How come it's not spelled properly? She said, oh, as long as they understand the essence of the word. I don't know what that means, but I'll tell you something. When they understand the essence of the word, they won't be able to read a book. They won't be able to read an article, and they definitely won't get through university. So, understanding the essence of the word may be nice and it may be a fancy way. These kids were 5 years old, they were about to go into grade 1. They don't need to just understand the essence, they need to understand that they can sound words out to make their life easier. And that's how we can learn a new language, and that's how we can learn to read. So I'll stop beating a dead horse with that one because it's obviously a personal pet peeve of mine, but phonics are very, very important. Okay. Dr. Seuss and other easy readers at night. Okay. I cannot praise Dr. Seuss enough. Okay. Honestly, I love the patterning of Dr. Seuss. Okay. So Cat in the Hat came back, and No, Sam, I do not like green eggs and ham. There's all that pattern. There's all that fun, sort of weird characters that are completely kind of imaginary, and they challenge. There's books about your teeth and taking care of your 32 teeth, and there's books about your bones and your shadow, and I am me, and this is who I am, and there's so many great concepts there. I know that there's been a backlash recently against Dr. Seuss. I'm not sure what the reason was, but I think one of his books were not, I guess, friendly in some way. I think that we need to just start accepting and reading these books in the spirit they were written. I don't think that we need to, try and apply them to modern society or politics. When those was written back then, they were written in order to associate phonics. Okay, so I'm apolitical about everything, but I have to say Dr. Seuss books are some of my favorite books. But so are some of the books like the butterfly, the ladybug one. I can't remember the name of the author. Katrin would probably remember that one. But read every night before bed. Memorization is a path to reading. A lot of parents say to me, "My child can read," and I'm like, "Really?" And they're like, "Yeah, go get this book." And they bring back the book and they read the book to me, and I'm like, "They're not reading. They've just memorized it," which is fine. Totally fine. If they memorize a book because it's their favorite book and you've read it to them, good on you. Good on you. So now instead of memorizing it, make sure that when you read it with them, skip a page. Skip a page with them and say, I'm going to skip this page. Let's see if you remember what's on this page. And if you can't, let's see if you could use the first letter of this word to remember what's on this page. Use memorization as a path to reading. Play the rhyming game. I've already told you about this. I used to play the rhyming game all the time with my children. So think of a word and they think of the same pattern with the different letter, and then always praise their efforts. Start writing their name as much as possible so they can recognize it. Sing their name more often. I sang all three of my kids' names. You don't need to be, like I said, a singer. I am by no means a singer. Okay. My voice really is not the greatest. I'm really good at other things. But Julia, Julia, do 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 do, Julia. That was Julia. And then Elise was Elise, Elise, like simple songs. But I kept repeating it. Elise. She means a lot to me. Elise. And you know what? They learned to write their name because they were able to sing their name. Okay. I know it sounds silly, but believe me, it works because my son Timothy, so I had 5-letter names so far, and then Timothy came along, and it's like, Oh, what am I going to do with Timothy? But now I always say Timothy, who's my favorite little guy. Timothy, he's my favorite little guy. And you know what? He sings it to himself when he's writing it, and he's in kindergarten. So he'll be like Timothy. Magic, right? Because you put it to music. Okay. So try your best if you're having a hard time coming up with a song for your child's name. And I'm only going to make this offer once. You may write us an email to webinars@angelictreasuresdaycare.com and I may be able to help you. Okay. But this is a one time offer. Okay. Planting, gardening, and baking. They're great. They're great activities. They teach about measurement. They teach about fractions. They teach about addition. They teach about, recipes, pots, plant sizes, textures, weight, density. I can go on and on and on. Anything that is sensory that has to do with nature, like planting and gardening and baking, it teaches them so much. My son was able to understand equivalent fractions. He was understanding, that 1/8 and 2/3 or 2/3 and 3/4, which one is bigger, because he was able to understand the measurement piece of it because we baked a lot with him. And my daughter, because she loves, loves, love plants and gardening and stuff, she understands. She'll say, Mommy, no, 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 no. We don't need more than this much soil, which is about a cup of soil in this little plant. Otherwise, blah, blah, blah. So they understand measurement and they will understand, but it's practical examples. It's not sitting them on a table and saying 1/8, numerator, denominator. They'll get that later. Don't worry about that. What you're trying to understand is what does 1/8 look like? So here's a pizza. Let's count how many slices are in the pizza. I do this with my kids all the time. They hate it. They're like, Mom. And I'm like, I don't care. Let's do this. So they count how many slices are in the pizza. And I'm like, would you like 1/8, 2/8, or 3/8 of the pizza? And she'll be like 2/8. And I'm like, okay, sounds good. And I give her 2/8. And I'm like, how many are left? And then I'll get my 5-year-old to. So it's always about fractions in real life. Okay. Division or multiplication can be done by skip counting and understanding grouping of objects while playing with certain toys. So, a lot of people think division and multiplication should only be taught in grade 2 and 3 and 4. Some people don't even learn it till grade 5. And unfortunately, I've helped grade 10 students that didn't understand multiplication division. Doesn't have to be rote. Okay. You don't have to teach them 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 4 is 16. You don't have to do that. Okay. You can teach them the practical aspects of multiplication and division. Multiplication is simply skip counting. Okay. So if you think about any of the multiplication tables, they are adding the same number over and over again. So the 5 multiplication table is 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, and it can go on and on and on. So skip counting is important. And then if you tell them the value of every finger is going to be 3, so count up by 3, they get multiplication a lot faster. Okay. So be very cognizant that it doesn't have to be taught a certain way in sort of the old school way. And division is very easy. When you're playing with them in toys and they've got green toys, red toys, and blue toys, then you can say, let's see how many toys are in total. Now let's divide them into 3 groups. Let's divide and make sure you use the word divide, not separate, not split them up. Divide. Use the words that are actually part of the equation you're teaching them. And when you divide them into 3 groups, count how many are in each group and say, oh, wow, look at that. 21 divided by 3 is 7. There are 7 in each group. 7 times 3 is 21. 21 divided by 3 is 7. Right there, you have achieved what they try and do with them a lot later. Okay. But when they get into a group, let's say you have a play date after COVID is over, God willing, very soon. So let's say you have a birthday party and you say, okay, I want you guys to divide yourselves. There's 10 of you. I want you to divide yourself in 2 groups. So 5 and 5. Excellent. We're going to do a scavenger hunt. We'll see which group wins. But when you come back after you've divided yourself, you're going to come back together. So how many of you are in total? 10. Excellent. You've divided yourself into groups. So how many per group are you going to have? And this is how we teach it in classrooms as well. Like I get the children to stand up and say there's 30 of you. I'd like 3 groups. How many in each group? And they all have to be equal. So they keep going into different groups and they're like, okay, okay, how many do you have? I have 7. How many do you have? 9. Oh, okay, no, no, no. So that's not right.
Getting them to experience math is so much better for retention than teaching it to them on pen and paper. I'll leave that there. Talking about animals, their ecosystem. So it's great when parents say, my son loves animals or my daughter loves animals. And I'm like, great. So what are you doing with that? Oh, well, we know all the animals because we read about them all the time and we know the sounds they make. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, that's it. And I'm like, okay, but do you understand how amazing it is that your child has a love about animals? And a lot of children this age love animals. They love animals or dinosaurs, whatever it is. Why don't you teach them about ecosystems, habitats where they live? Are they carnivores, omnivores, or herbivores? And then ask them, say, are you a herbivore? Are you an omnivore? If your family's vegetarian, you're all herbivores. If your family is eating meat and vegetables, you're omnivores. So teach them those words and expand their thinking. They already love something, so use it and leverage it. Take marine animals with you to the bath. Take animals with you on a walk that fly and throw them. Throw them. Oh, look, this dinosaur, it's a pteranodon. Let's fly it. Okay. So, land animals, take them to the garden and place them around a plant. Let them connect what these animals are to their real life, practical, pragmatic, and easy to understand. These are the kind of lessons they will always remember. Talk about weather and patterns, how the rain pitter patters. Talk about patterns of like, beat your don't beat your legs, sorry, tap your legs. Tap your legs gently, okay. Again, don't say Sylvia told me to let my child beat themselves. So tap the legs and tap it fast as a rainstorm, tap it slow when it's a slow rain. Talk about cumulus clouds and cirrus clouds. Tell them when you're driving, talk to them about deciduous trees and coniferous trees. Whatever you can do in terms of talking about their nature and their belonging will enhance their mathematical, their logical thinking, and their scientific inquiry. Okay. And then go cloud watching. There's nothing better than being able to lay, and I'm hoping for summer very soon, but being able to lay down and look at the clouds and see if you can see different imaginary things or letters or words. Some people see, some people see elephants, some people say, so it's really, really nice to look at abstract, also taking them to art galleries and really enhancing their inquisitiveness and inquiry through experiencing different artwork and different museums and so on. So use words like hexagon and pentagon and trapezoid and cylinder and cube and rectangular prism to describe 3D shapes. Please, please don't make everything circle, square, rectangle, triangle, because at the end of the day, our world is not two-dimensional. We don't live in a comic book and we're not flat. So it's great that they know rectangle when they were toddlers. Where are you going with that? What's the next step? So the next step after that, and I always think of learning as stages, right? So if your child has gotten down pat the five or six most common, you know, diamond, and they even understand hexagon, they understand pentagon, and so exciting. They are now ready for the next level. Okay. So tell them about hexagon and pentagons, tell them about edges and points, but also talk to them about trapezoids, talk to them about cylinders, show them real life examples of cubes and rectangular prisms. It's very important to understand 3D shapes because this is going to be their pre engineering, pre architectural, pre innovation portion of them. Okay, so creating cubes using paper or patterns or cutting them out, it's so much fun. And a lot of people don't know this, but apparently origami actually develops this ability to create a 3D object out of paper. So maybe do some origami with them. Okay. Let's scribble together. Children, again, need to practice the pincher grasp, but they also need to understand that they can basically use that skill anywhere. It doesn't have to be in a workbook, and it doesn't have to be in a something. It could be anywhere. So they could use crayons, they can use pencils, they can use sticks in the mud, they can use sand or a boogie board. Everywhere you go, scribble together and make sure that you're enjoying the process and make sure that you're involving letters somehow. Draw on their backs again. I used to draw "I love you" on the back of my child's back, and They understood how to write "I love you." Like that was one of the first phrases they could write. Play any games they're interested in, engage them in conversation about the game. For example, my daughter loved playing with a toy piano, and I taught her the notes left versus right hand. So, teaching her notes, half notes, full notes, quarter notes. Yes, music does have fractions. So, again, fractions is coming back into real life. And then everything you do with them has an academic component. You just have to do it through their play, but not as administered content, not as a way for them to sit down and you have to sit down and you have to read and you have to write and you have to do this and you have to connect the dots and you have to trace the letters on paper. That's not how they're going to retain that. They're going to retain it through their experiential learning. So make sure you engage them, you converse with them, and that you learn together. Preschool milestones are simple. They are learning to read and write. They are developing emotional intelligence and intellectual reasoning. They are going to be challenging you. So, hierarchical challenges due to emergence of the self. They're getting older. They are trying to, and they are starting to feel like, no, I don't like this. I don't want to eat broccoli. No, I don't like the song. No, you need to turn that song off, even though you're the owner of the car and you're the owner of the house. You still have to turn that song off. I hate it. And they'll use those strong words. Curiosity, they're very chatty at this age. Most of them, they leverage questions to educate. So when they ask you why for the 50 millionth time that day, know that it's not to aggravate you. They are just at that stage where they need to know how things work. Okay. My daughter used to take apart her toys to look at the battery pack. And I'd be like, "What are you doing? I don't want you looking at the battery." And she's like, "I just want to see how it works." I'm like, okay, reasonable enough. Love songs and music. Use this as much as possible. Remember, I told you that. Need for acceptance and belonging. Make sure you accommodate through setting up play dates at center around a theme like dinosaurs or dress up like animals, princesses, whatever, as long as you ask the children to make up the narrative for their play so that they can engage their imagination. A lot of people have play dates, and a lot of children love to dress up. I don't know if you know this, but my children would wear tutus to school and to the park, and my son would wear his dinosaur costume at the most random of times, and it's okay. It's okay to have costume play dates. Children have costumes at home that they play with all the time, superhero costumes, whatever it is, and they never wear them out except on Halloween or on special days, I guess spirit days at school. So why don't you, when you set up play dates, set up a story, get them to show up in whatever costume they wear at home, and get them to make up a story using the different characters. Okay, so we're expanding on using facts. We're talking about math. We're talking about language. We're including so much in something so simple as a play date. These are some resources I have. So the phonics that I was referring to before, long vowels and short vowels. So just so you know, long vowels say their name. So when you hear the word a, the sound of a in a word, it's a long vowel. So grapes versus apple when it's short. And then e is feet. So you hear the e there, but elephant. You're not saying elephant, you're saying elephant. Same thing with the I, kite versus igloo. It's short, igloo. Boat versus octopus. It's a lot tougher. And then glue, you're hearing the oo versus umbrella. Okay. This is just an example of one of the posters that you could have in your bedroom. You can even create one for your child. You don't have to buy one. I created ones for them, and I actually put a picture of their like the letter was their picture. So you can there's so many ways you can do this. It's very simple. You can print it from Pinterest, or you can do it any way you like. You can even use your own cultural stuff for this. I saw one that was very very cute, and it was done by an Egyptian mom, and she put the cutest things on there that were very Arabic, like very very Egyptian. But it related to her and her culture and her child, and she wanted to kind of experience their heritage and welcome their heritage through it. So I thought it was genius. I thought it was great, and she actually put pictures of, B was Baba, which is the dad in Arabic. So Baba, the picture of Baba was right there, and then M was Mama, right? So she put her picture, and it was great. Like, and then I think the grandmother was Lena or something like that. So she put the grandma's name, and she goes Grandma Lena. So personalize it if you need to. Okay.
And then blend helpers. So these are all phonics, okay? I'm telling you right now, phonics exist and they worked for centuries. It's sounding out words. It's understanding that there's blends and digraphs. Blends are before the word, and digraphs are at the end of the word. Word families. These are the patterning that I was talking to you about. Finally, and I hope that this was helpful. I hope that it was interesting. I hope that you benefited from it. But finally, I do want, maybe we can put this in the chat. I don't know if I can, hold on. Maybe I can put it in the chat. One second. Um, Screen sharing has stopped. Okay, let me go back. Sorry about that. So here, I'm just gonna go to the, and I'm just gonna put this in our chat. So the Nipissing assessment tool is used by a lot of people that deal with children, infants, all the way to preschool. And feel free to copy and paste that. I put it in our chat right now. It allows us to set benchmarks for what children need to sort of achieve by a certain age. So if your child is alarmingly behind in an aspect, you can consult this and say, okay, my child is 4 years old and this aspect or this piece of development is still at the infant stage. So it gives you sort of an alert to for awareness and to go and maybe talk to a pediatrician. It does the same as well the other side. So if you don't mind me sharing, I think I shared the wrong thing. Hold on one second. Share my screen. Here we go. So what it does is profiles. Do you see that? It says first year in the first 2 months, at 4 month what they should be doing, at 6 month what they should be doing. So by 6 months it can be swiping, smiling and babbling. It doesn't mean that if your baby doesn't do all this, that they're not going to do all this, okay? It just means that this is a rough timeline of when most the norm babies do it. A lot of babies do stuff earlier. A lot of my babies did stuff way later. I know Katrin's baby was doing stuff like a lot faster. They were walking a lot faster. My babies wouldn't walk till they were 16 because they were carried everywhere and they refused to walk. They were like, bring me my carriage. It was weird. Anyways, so all of this stuff just tells you, weaning off the bottle, understanding, seeking comfort. Are they using facial expressions to protest? So it's a really, really good resource. We use it often in order to, put together these little development sort of stories for children and say, they're developing as, the norm or what have you. And I used it personally for my psychology degree. It's not as accurate as I like it to be, and it doesn't take into account children with superpowers. And I say superpowers because I really do mean superpowers. They are the children that are either extremely intelligent in one area and not the rest, or they're ADHD, or they're under the spectrum. They have so much to offer, but they don't fit within this mold. So that's my one of my only kind of doubtable sort of things. But as a general framework, it works. Okay, so if you want to use it, you go ahead and use it, whatever works for you. Then we have here, please remember, okay, this is very important, okay, it's what we believe, okay? Children are innately intelligent, which means that they are born with intelligence. They are curious and they are wonderful. Learning is natural, okay? Keep it that way and just expand on their interests, and they will learn faster and more effectively than you can ever ever believe. So if you make it unnatural and you sit them at a table and you force content on them, they will not retain it. Okay? Because it's not natural. But if you sit there and teach them division, subtraction, and addition through songs and through physical movement and through games, then it becomes learning, becomes naturally fun, and it's retained for a lot longer. Okay? Finally, I have this very cool academic toy that you guys can get if you're watching and if you're on Instagram. If you type in "win me," then you could win it. It's a bunch of acorns. I really, really love this. I used it with my children. I absolutely enjoyed it. It's a bunch of acorns, and in the acorn is items that have the letter. Remember when I was telling you what A, what begins with A? So basically, what I would do is, if we had an apple inside the A, we would, say A apple, and then we would take that acorn and we would place it on something else that starts with A. Then we would take the B acorn, do the same thing, place it on something that starts with B, and then we would go around and collect it like an Easter egg hunt. So type win me if this is something you want. And if you don't mind, Katrin, just keep track of, thanks, Jules, keep track of the people who write win me, because we would like to kind of get in touch with them and possibly get you, Katrin, to do that whole magical thing that you do with the numbers and the stuff. So I'm done. That was my presentation for you that I've prepared for you. I There is so much I can talk about, and I've been talking for an hour and a half, and I'm sorry about that. But there's so much I want to share with you, and there's so much you can do with your children. Don't feel overwhelmed. Literacy and math we're surrounded by it. It's all around us. And I wanted to really, really bring home the fact that you don't need to buy books, and you don't need to, you know, get out there and buy expensive material. Everything you do with your child is about communication, it's about conversation, and it's about using your body parts, and about being physical active with them and communicating and conversing with them. Anything can be done, and it can be done just with between you guys, like the parents and the child. It doesn't have to involve any external sort of stimulation, whether it's like tablets or leap pads or those very expensive toys, or you don't need any of that. You don't, because literacy and math and science can be taught in the simplest of tasks. So that's my spiel. Feel free if you have any questions to ask them. I hope that I didn't, you know, ramble on too long, and I hope that you at least learn something. So maybe, other than win me, maybe if you can comment or say something like, this is what I've learned, or something you found interesting, that would be awesome for me. And Katrin, you can take it over now. I'm done.
Thank you, Sylvia. That was wonderful. There were quite a few viewers on our Instagram. In the last 5 minutes, we got cut off though because my phone died. I tried to plug it in time,
It's
but it
okay.
just couldn't happen.
It's
Um,
okay.
so sorry about that. But thank you, Sylvia, for coming on and showing us all those wonderful activities, things that you could do. Uh, I actually messaged Eric Carl, the word Eric Carl, when you were
Oh
talking about the
yes.
Hungry Caterpillar, but I sent it to Jules by accident as a private message. I just noticed that. So sorry about that. I don't know how that happened or why, but
Okay.
Eric Carl.
Jules, you
And
should
he
have said
also has
something.
Brown Bear, Brown Bear. Sorry, side note. That was just,
That's right,
I
love that
love,
book.
that's a good one because it's the
Yeah,
repetition.
yeah.
Thank you for everyone who commented. We will be in touch. Everyone is welcome to message us, like Sylvia said, at webinars@angelictreasuresdaycare.com. No, ATCD webinars at angelictreasuresdaycare.com. Should you want any more information, or if you'd like Sylvia to make your child a song, that would be great too. Um, but thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. And next week, we're going to have our last session done by Angie Gergis, the CEO of Angelic Treasures Christian Daycare, on nutrition. So if you have picky eaters, you definitely want to stick in. So Jules, I think you're great with Zoom.
Yeah.
No, because she's messaging. She does a lot of
Oh,
activities with her son. They're new to me and she'll do them. That's awesome. That's what we
oh,
want to hear.
good.
Thanks, Jules. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening. Bye.
Bye.